Hello and welcome to the For Evansville podcast, a podcast about the needs and dreams of Evansville, and where you can learn how to not just be in Evansville, but to be for Evansville. So Jonathan, can you tell us what we're learning today, what we're doing on this episode?
Yeah, so this is the first episode of season 2, which I'm really excited about. I really enjoyed doing a podcast in season 1. I've never done that before, and we talked to a lot of really great guests.
We did.
It was a lot of fun, a good excuse to hear a lot of people's stories and learn more about our city. And so today, before we do another great season of great conversations and learn a lot of new things, I thought it would be good for us as a team to get together and maybe talk a little bit about the question that we asked all of our guests in season 1, which is, when did you realize you were for Evansville? Or maybe why are you for Evansville? And our guests had really good answers to that question, and I would love to hear our answers to that question as well. And I thought maybe our listeners would like to hear that as well. It's also a good opportunity for our listeners to meet some new members of the team. One new member of the team, I guess I should say. Yeah. So that voice that you just heard is Sarah Inman, who just joined our team. And so, Sarah, why don't you kick us off and we'll just each kind of introduce who we are and what we do at For Evansville. And then we can get into that question of why we're each for Evansville. And then at the end, we'd love to kind of get into maybe what we can expect for this season.
Yeah. I'm Sarah Inman. I'm the director of operations here, which is honestly really fun for me because it's just thinking of strategies, efficiencies, ways to help create some new systems that make what we do work even better. And I've known of For Evansville for a while, worked for a local church, and so was connected that way. But I think a question I'll even ask later is, because I think people ask me this, is why does For Evansville need to exist? I think people ask me that, like, wow, that's a job? Like, that's your job when you start explaining what it is. And then when you start learning more about it and meeting people who are doing this thing of not just being in Evansville, but being for Evansville and learning the needs and dreams of the city, especially some of the nonprofit people that I've met, even just being on staff for 2 months now. And some people I already knew, but like I can share a specific story. So this morning, actually, I went to a site council at a local school and hearing them talk about not only the things that they're doing and celebrating the wins of their school, but then sharing how a local church came in and did something really, really simple. And I just thought, man, that is amazing. And all it took was a connection to other people. And that's what we do, at For Evansville, is be able to connect people to that. And so for me, when I think of why I'm for Evansville, is knowing that there's so many opportunities for more people to connect in simple ways, but make huge impacts. Like this was just getting snacks for kids at schools, because some of them eat lunch at 10 o'clock and some eat at 1 o'clock.
Right.
And so realizing, it's wild. Like to think about that in the afternoon, it could really hinder a student's opportunity to learn because they're thinking about that they're hungry.
Yeah.
And being able to have a snack.
That happens to me all the time at work. I'm like, I've got to go get a snack.
That's why I've got dark chocolate on my desk.
It's like, we're going to get a snack after this, right?
So it's not my stomach you hear. It's going to be Jonathan's.
Right.
I was worried about that. But hearing that is just an add-on to one of the reasons why I want to be for Evansville, is being able to connect people to that, but also seeing the opportunities of growth and really change, and just a place where people can really belong and flourish. And so for me, I've been in Evansville for 20 years, and I think I realized I was for it when I started working in Evansville. It was a place that I really belonged and was contributing to and wanted to help see it grow.
Very cool.
Well, I'm Adrienne, if we haven't been introduced yet. I'm Adrienne Gregorich, and I've been on staff for about a year, and I'm the communications coordinator. And part of that is social media, and when this podcast comes out, you can refer to our social media. Please go follow us and like us on Instagram and Facebook.
We've been a little quiet on social media because Adrienne was out for maternity leave, and
nothing happened on social media.
So,
when I came back, Sarah was like, I knew when you left because social went silent.
I can see it.
Here's the data.
It's not because we don't like you guys. It's just Adrienne wasn't here.
Gone. But our first kind of post of the year, besides our merch, so I'll plug that as well. Go buy a For Evansville shirt. But was that yesterday we went to brunch and we started talking about our elevator pitch for Evansville. But apparently I'm not a great communicator because somebody thought I was asking what my elevator pitch would be for Evansville, not for Evansville.
Not for the For Evansville organization,
For the
but for the
city.
city.
How many
Like,
times
what's
can
the
we say
pitch for the
for?
city?
But
Yeah.
for the city, what would my elevator pitch be? And I've been thinking about that question way more than anything. And
That's a good one.
so that's what I wanted to ask you guys today is like, what would your elevator pitch be for Evansville, not for us as an organization? And I don't know, like, is there specific things that make Evansville unique besides the Fall Festival and our claim over Grippos, which you can refer back to an episode.
Right.
Well, also, I will
Yeah.
say, even at that brunch, though, when you gave your elevator pitch for Evansville, which is hard to say using the four in front of it.
Yeah. You're really confusing
It was
everybody.
really simple, and I was like, "Can you write that down?" Because I want to use that when I'm sharing that, because I feel like what I say, it makes sense in my mind, but doesn't make sense to everybody. So,
Right. You want me to give it?
yeah, can you?
All
Give it?
right. Here we go. No, it's not polished at all. I just say there's a lot of needs and dreams in our city, which is part of our mission statement. But there are a lot of needs and dreams in our city, and we just try to connect people together who are trying to solve those. So that's really kind of it. Did I say
So
more
simple.
before?
I
No,
don't think
that's
so.
it.
Those great.
Yeah. That's good.
We put
Yeah.
people in the same room to try to solve those problems, because there's a lot of great people in Evansville who are trying to tackle these problems. And so our job is kind of being a higher level of listening to those people and saying like, hey, you should be in the same room as this person because they care about those things as well. And so then they can work together better to solve that problem.
Yeah, that's very good. So if you have an elevator pitch for the city of Evansville, we'd love to hear it. You should hop on that
Let's all
post
think
on
about that
Instagram
together.
and let us know what it is.
Yeah.
But I'm going to have to give that some more thought.
Right.
I'm Jonathan Boettcher. I'm the Director of Communication and Storytelling at For Evansville, which is a really fun job. I love doing the podcast, and we've done some films and things too. We're also doing a State of E report again this year, which is going to be really fun and exciting. And so, yeah. Are we getting into why we're for Evansville?
Yeah, tell
right
us.
now?
Why are
I
you
think
for
I answered
Evansville?
mine,
wasn't
didn't
sure.
I?
Okay.
Yeah.
But
I was,
You did.
I wasn't sure if we
you
were
want
like,
to right now,
But now
you
I'm
giving a
can.
feeling
preview
like I
about it.
didn't because you had to ask, so I'm not sure
No,
if I did a
Sarah
good
definitely
job.
gave the answer.
I just wasn't
Yeah.
sure how deep we were,
Let's
getting
hear
into
it.
that. So, I think for me, I've always kind of had this desire to like do good things, not just out of like an innate sense of goodness, but I grew up in church and we had like a strong emphasis on loving our neighbors. And that was like a big part of our family experience growing up. And so I think I always kind of had that idea of like, oh, I want to like love people and do nice things. And I think when I got a little older, I began to recognize that like the idea of loving your neighbor is maybe broader than just like doing individual acts of kindness or like being nice to individual people, but that there's a lot of like making right what's wrong in the world that goes into loving your neighbor. And so I guess that kind of like faith journey for me made me feel like, okay, what are the opportunities for me to actually do that in my real life? And like I said, whenever I was younger, I think I always imagined that I would like go away somewhere else and be part of some kind of great thing that was going on somewhere and make a difference in the world. And then just began to recognize like there's plenty of opportunities to make right things that are wrong right here in our city. And even in the circles that I'm already a part of. And so I think I began to be more for Evansville when I started to see those opportunities and began to like meet those opportunities and find like there was almost like a sense of excitement and fulfillment of like being able to step into those spaces and see real change happen and work together with other people. So
That's good.
I feel like there are two types of people in Evansville. Those, I think the
Oh,
three
boy,
of
here
us,
we go.
the three of us fall into that category of like, we grew up here, we thought we would go away and do something better and live somewhere better. And then we ended up here and fell in love with the city. And then there's those that come later, But you seem like an exception to the rule to me, because I feel like the people who like end up here that did not grow up here are like, this city is boring, or like it doesn't have anything to offer. But there's those ones that we've talked to, their common denominator is once they started meeting those needs,
Yeah.
and meeting the people in the city, that's when they fell in love with it. And so I had someone today ask me, like, why do you love Evansville? Not what makes me for Evansville, but just kind of coming from a place of just moving here, and not really knowing where to get plugged in. She's like, you don't have like a team to rally around. She's from Kentucky. She's like, there's not a bourbon culture here. And so I was like, that's true. Evansville doesn't, except for maybe like donuts, but even then there's like rivalries. We can't just all gather around one donut bank thing.
You were like, there
we go.
You were like, bourbon. Have you ever had a Grippo?
Like,
They're from Cincinnati.
Right. I was like, I really feel like the only thing that Evansville rallies around is the fall festival. But like, do we have anything else? Can you guys think of anything? Like, what makes Evansville Evansville?
Oh, that's kind of like the elevator pitch question, right?
Or yeah, it's kind of really, I just want everyone to answer that, please. So
Yeah.
I'm just gonna ask it in every way I can.
I have a couple things to say about that.
Okay, go ahead.
And by the way, I'm Ross Chapman. I'm the president and executive director at For Evansville. And here's what I'd say about Evansville. Couple things. First is degrees of separation. So you go to a big city and you are never going to bump into the mayor. You are not going to find the people that you want to connect with in the coffee shop or at the restaurant or wherever. But if you're in a city like Evansville, it's pretty likely that that's going to happen. If you're out and about, you're going to run into people that, maybe can help you take a next step in your career, find, a great house to live in or whatever the thing is. Yeah. And so there's not 7 degrees of separation, there's 2. And that makes the city feel smaller, but also provides you with a lot more opportunity, I think. And that kind of leads into the second one, which I think is incredible. And that is that I think it's a lot easier to be a creator and a contributor than a consumer in Evansville. Yeah. And, living in bigger cities, I've lived in Chicago, Indianapolis, and Charlotte. As soon as I moved back to Evansville, there were like 50 ideas about things that we could do in Evansville that aren't here yet, that we thought were really cool in other places we lived. And the neat thing about that is you can go do them. Like people are just excited for you to like jump in and contribute.
Right.
Yeah.
They'll cheer you on and they'll support you. They'll be excited. You'll feel like $1 million. It's just, that's a really cool part about Evansville. And I think that's something that I would say, like if I was just going to say, why would you move to Evansville? Well, you'd move to Evansville because you believe you want to be a part of building something great. And you want the opportunity to do it now, not when you're so successful in your career 30 years from now. No, you can do it today. Do it right now in Evansville. So I love that part of it. And, for me, learning to be for Evansville was a whole long journey. I didn't move here with a lot of love necessarily yet for Evansville. Yeah. But as I got to know the people and see the things they were doing and the ways that you could jump in and contribute, it just started like really seeing that this could be fun. You can make an impact, you can contribute here. And then a lot of new things started happening, like coffee shops and restaurants and downtown. And this is like the right time to be in Evansville. If you're ever going to pick a time in history to live in Evansville, I feel like this is the right time.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I was going to say is I think the ability to contribute was really compelling to me. It was like the ability to make a meaningful contribution, to like make a difference, but in addition to that, you also have the opportunity to like experience how a lot of other people are doing that, like there are a lot of people in Evansville who have recognized that potential and are bringing unique contributions to the city that are like brand new and fresh and exciting. And so I think it's really cool to be able to be like part of that momentum, but also to experience it and like new event ideas happening, new businesses, new changes to the city in general. It's pretty cool. And it makes you think like down the road, when I'm a lot older, to be able to be the old grandpa who's like, I remember when, whatever.
When that building was
happened.
imploded.
There's something to be said about that. That's kind of cool. And to be able to look back on a city and to almost, for me, to be able to think about almost like growing up with the city.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really neat. It's fun to me, think about the question you asked, Adrian, because I don't think there's a consensus answer on like what kind of what do we rally around? What do we, I think there's some values that we all have. I think there's, things that we point out in our city that we like. But yeah, it's a good question.
I feel like Evansville is very unique, and a lot of that is there's no set culture. There's no, like you said, there's no thing that everyone rallies around. So there's a bunch of different things, and when you go to a different city, you kind of plug into their culture. But I feel like here, when you come here, you make your own culture, or you like
contribute
to it.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's still kind of trying to find its identity. So it is like the people who are joining it are growing up with it.
That's what we are. You just said it. That's our thing. We're a place where you can contribute.
Yeah.
I remember I was talking to some friends a few years ago, and they were both artistic and creative, and people had asked them, like, why do you live in Evansville? Like, you're a few hours from Nashville, St. Louis, Indianapolis, Cincinnati. Like, why not go to one of those really artistic cities? And they're like, you can. And they're like, but there's something really unique about Evansville. And something they said that was so simple. Like, we can go to a coffee shop and we can plug in our computers. Like, it sounds really silly, but like, if you go someplace in Nashville, there's no seats. Like, for a lot of those places, there's so many people that there's still an opportunity, like you even said, like, to connect with people in some of those local places that you can't do somewhere else. And you get to be a part of, like, walking in, like, Ross walks in to River City and they already know what he wants. Like, it's pretty unique as well in places like that.
Yeah. I have a question for you guys, and
wait.
I'm kind of throwing this at you guys off the cuff. So,
Perfect.
Listeners, if this doesn't go well, this wasn't in our notes. But it is kind of related to what we wanted to talk about today, which is the role of listening and learning the needs of dreams of our city in kind of making us become more for Evansville or fall in love with the city. And I've heard from a number of people in Evansville, whenever I talk about like the State of E report or the podcast and how we want to really highlight particular areas of need in our city and help people understand them. A lot of people see that as a really bad idea because it can create this perception that Evansville is like not a good place to live. You know what I mean? Like if you highlight the needs of the city, if you highlight the challenges our city is facing, it's going to make people feel like our city is like defined by those things, which I don't think is our heart behind that at all. And I think whenever we actually engage with those topics, we do it in a way that doesn't come across that way. But we've all kind of talked about how learning the needs of the city and the challenges of the city actually caused us to fall more in love with Evansville and not be like, I can't believe I live here. Like it has this problem and this problem and this problem. So I'd love to just kind of hear you guys' perspective on that. And if you've encountered that before or what it is about learning the needs of the city specifically that have helped you to love Evansville more and not less. You know what I mean?
I think when you think about if you know what the needs are, that means that most of the time when we get information, even from our organization or other organizations we're connected to, research has happened. People have, looked into it. It's not just like we're sitting at a coffee shop or a bar or someplace and just talking about all the things that are wrong. There's actual data and information that is showing that. And it's like, if we know that, then we can do something about it. And that's exciting to be a part of, really growing with it, but not just sitting along the sides and being in Evansville, but literally saying, how can we be for making a change positively for things for the betterment of all people in our city, not just, one thing that we're trying to fix. But actually having solid information means that people are actually looking into it for a purpose.
Yeah, that's good.
And I think, again, like being that agent of transformation, like you're saying, it seems tangible here. Like you were saying, you can, instead of being, you can be creative here. Like you can be part of that agent of transformation, and it seems attainable because it is like maybe a smaller area. Or, I mean, personally for me, we are focusing on school partnerships this year and just like getting people into the schools to help our schools, because if our kids are thriving, then our city can thrive. And just listening to the principals and their hearts, and just in school administration and their hearts for the kids, and even just very practical things that they have given us examples of how we can help. Like that has changed my perspective of, yeah, I can sit with a kid and tutor them after school or just be a part of their life. And then instead of me thinking like, oh, that school is terrible, it needs tutors, like I think that'll be really fulfilling for myself as well, to just walk alongside a kid and make sure that they have a better future. And so it's kind of this cyclical give back. Like if you give to the city, it'll give back to you. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
I think that question in particular comes out of probably a good intention. We don't want our city to be known for
Right.
what's wrong with it.
Right? I think that's the idea behind it.
Which is good. We don't really. But I think it's, the reality is every city has things that are not good.
Right.
So if we don't talk about the things that aren't going right or the things we wish were different or better, I don't see how they can change.
Yeah.
And so I think putting, a spotlight on some of those things and saying, here's something that's going on, but here's the ideal that we're all excited about and say we want to see in our city. I think that just helps people rally around it. Because as the people who say they are for Evansville or they love their city, they're going to want to engage and make it even better.
Yeah.
And I think you can't really become for Evansville or love your city if you just never see the needs.
Yeah.
It's just because it's so easy to just keep your head down and do life. You got so many obligations and family and all these things going on. And you don't have to look around and see what the environment is around you unless somebody calls attention to it.
Yeah.
And so I think, it's a balance of those things, but also recognizing every city has issues. Every city I've lived in has had many issues.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's important too to pair. We try to pair the phrase needs and dreams. And so for myself, or just a good practice in general, is okay, what's the need? Like this is an area of need, but so then how can that inspire us to dream? Like out of that need, what's the dream? And seeing that, and that causes inspiration and actually solving a problem rather than just complaining about it.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And as you guys were talking, I was thinking about, I think for me, as that process of learning the needs and dreams of our city, part of how that has caused me to fall more in love with Evansville is that every time I'm looking into an area of need in our city, I encounter people who are already engaged in solving whatever that need is. And I always find a really genuine love for people in each of those spaces. So you mentioned how school partnerships is one thing that we're really trying to rally around and provide a lot of support for this year. And in that area in particular, we've had the opportunity to sit down with some principals and teachers and nonprofit leaders who are engaged in schools, and just to hear them talk about their passion for kids in Evansville is really inspiring.
Right.
And they don't see it as this need that needs to be solved. They see it as an opportunity to invest in some really incredible kids. And so I think for me, that's a really exciting and encouraging piece of that whole process is seeing the people who are already engaged, already contributing, and being inspired to want to join into that, and I love what you said about within each of those needs, there is also an opportunity to dream about what that could turn into. in with kids in particular. Like, we can dream about what does it look like for Evansville to be a place where every student is just well supported and has the opportunity to learn and grow, and then contribute whatever their unique contribution to the city is. So that's
what
cool.
you just said too, I think leads into why the For Evansville podcast exists. Because as you meet those people, you literally want to tell their story and share it with more people than just, the small section that they're focused on. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, I think we also need, we as in just people in general, we need stories to motivate us. We just need to keep hearing it. We need to keep hearing, oh man, this person's out there doing that. That's awesome. Like, what can I do? Or what do I care about? What, just challenges you to think, how am I using my time? How am I using my resources? Yeah. Can I do that for the benefit of others more? And I think that's something that we in our society, I think, celebrate, and we kind of raise it up and say that's an awesome thing. And so I think people are looking for that, but we have to be reminded often. Yeah. So let's hear the stories of people who are for Evansville, and let's know what the needs are and the dreams, so that we can be constantly kind of challenged in our day-to-day lives. We talk a lot in here about like not adding a whole lot of things to your life in order to be for Evansville. So I don't know. What do you guys think about that? We say that a lot. What comes to mind in your own lives when you're thinking, oh, I can be for Evansville, like just in my day-to-day world, rather than like, oh, I got to go start a nonprofit, or I got to volunteer 17 more hours a week, or whatever. It can get daunting
of like, oh, I've got to add volunteer hours to my life. Like my example is I do want to maybe tutor a kid or, sponsor a kid or something, and that would add hours to my life. But I was thinking back onto Randy Hobson's podcast episode where he talked about wanting to bring this cuisine that he had experienced. He wanted to bring it to Evansville. And so he did that. And again, that's like, okay, he started a small business, and it's not small anymore, but, and it's amazing. And like, yeah, we can't do that. Not everybody can do that either. But in his everyday, like day to day, he makes sure that he brings in people from Evansville and trains them to do the work instead of bringing the professionals outside of Evansville into his restaurant, because he wants those kids, especially he does invest in young kids. He wants those kids to have pride in what they do and pride in Evansville, and give them a reason to want to stay, which kind of addresses that issue of all of us growing up in Evansville and saying like, I want to go somewhere else to do something cool. But he's trying to bring that kind of cool factor to Evansville so people can have pride in that. And I think anybody can do that, like invest in a younger kid, or even the people in your company or wherever you're working, just to have pride in where they live and make them see that they can be a change maker here.
I think I can take that idea too. And a friend of ours and on our board, us and Max Hammers, he used to always, we worked at a church together, and one of those big things he'd always say is we'd try to have an event towards something instead of just going to an event that was already happening in our city. And I've always looked at that of being like, that makes so much sense. Like, you can literally be for the city when you just go to, like, again, I'm a West Sider, Franklin Street Bazaar, just showing up and being a part of it and being a part of the city. Or if they have a movie at the park, it's pretty cool, and it's fun to watch, like Goonies in the park, it's just fun. And showing up and being those spaces, not because you need to do anything, but just to be there and be a part of celebrating the things and the people who are a part of it.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, I think there are a lot of opportunities too to invite other people into our lives in meaningful ways, because in each of these needs that we're talking about, what we're really talking about is people, and what we're really talking about is neighbors, our neighbors in the city. And so we can talk about an issue like foster care or students who are experiencing poverty, and that can seem really daunting because it's this big systemic issue. But what it really is people in our city. And so how can I invite one of my neighbors who is being affected by that issue into my life in a way that's maybe going to make a little bit of a difference. And so it's been cool for me, because I feel like oftentimes we will be working on like a film or some kind of storytelling effort around one of these issues, and opportunities either, I don't know if the opportunities just like happen to show up whenever we're doing that, or if because I'm paying more attention to that issue, I see the opportunities more. But like right now we're thinking about school partnerships, and there's a young man who's a senior in high school who has just kind of become part of our life, and he hangs out at our house with us and plays with my kids, and we go and we work out. And it hasn't added any extra work or taken any extra time for me, because he's just like part of our life now, and and is spending time with us, and is actually adding a lot to our life. Not taking away time and energy, but actually adding like energy and helping us around the house and stuff. And so I think whenever we can look for those opportunities, we don't have to start something new. We just have to say, what am I doing in my life right now? And what are the opportunities I might have to invite somebody else into that to just be part of my life with me. So, yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, we're excited about the rest of this season. We're going to have a lot of really good guests for you to hear about. As we've mentioned several times in the course of our conversation, a big focus for us is school partnerships. And I think a lot of us can relate to school because we've had some sort of education.
Because we had to relate to school
in some way.
We had no choice.
But even beyond that, schools are a very like integrated part of our community, and we're all connected to a school in some way, directly or indirectly. And I think we might have an idea of what school is like still, and it might be accurate or it might not be accurate. And I think what I'm learning as I talk to more people is my perception of school and what students are facing is in need of an update often, and that there's a lot that I have to learn about that. And so we're going to be learning together on this podcast about schools and students and a lot of other topics in our city that kind of relate to that. So we're excited to share those conversations with you. And then in the second half of this year, we're going to be releasing another State of E report where we'll look at some of the big picture like needs and dreams of our city, and we'll bring on guests who can kind of unpack those things with us as well. So we're really excited about it, and we hope you'll join us.
Yeah, if you have any questions, or we haven't filmed the whole year yet, so if you have any topics that you would like us to dive into or explore, we'd love to do that. Again, make sure you follow us on social media at For Evansville on Instagram or Facebook. And if you want to answer those questions about your 30-second pitch for Evansville, or again, give us topics that you want us to explore, that is info@forevansville.org. Thanks for listening.